The battle within. I remember a time when my mind felt like a chaotic storm. It was a constant barrage of worries, fears, and doubts. I'd wake up with a knot in my stomach, overwhelmed by thoughts of failure, inadequacy, and what felt like 100 things that could go wrong. It was more than just stress, it was a relentless internal noise, a whisper campaign that chipped away at my peace. I was exhausted and I didn't understand why I couldn't just think positive and be done with it. Then I received a message that completely shifted my perspective. It was a simple but profound truth: my mind was a battlefield. This wasn't just a metaphor, it was a spiritual reality. The anxiety I was feeling, the nagging fears, they weren't just random emotions. They were part of a war. The message explained that the enemy's goal was to plant lies and sow discord in my thoughts. It was a strategy to keep me from the peace and victory God had promised. I'd always heard about spiritual warfare, but I'd never seen it so clearly in my own life. I began to understand that the Bible wasn't just a book of stories or a guide for good behavior, it was a weapon. The message told me to take up the sword of the Spirit, which is God's Word. I was instructed to memorize it, speak it aloud, and meditate on it. At first it felt a little strange, but I was desperate for peace. I started with a verse about anxiety, Philippians 4 verses 6-7. The next time a wave of worry crashed over me, I would literally speak the verse out loud, replacing the lie with God's truth. Do not be anxious about anything, I'd declare, even if my voice trembled. It was a small act of rebellion against the chaos in my mind. The more I did it, the more the truth began to sink in. I started to see those destructive thoughts for what they were: lies. I learned to identify them and actively reject them, like a gatekeeper turning away an unwanted visitor. I would replace them with a memorized truth, a promise from God. And as I did, I began to experience a peace that wasn't dependent on my circumstances. It was a supernatural calm that truly transcended all understanding. I realized I wasn't fighting this battle alone. God was fighting with me, and the tools He had given me, His Word and the assurance of my salvation, were incredibly powerful. Receiving that message wasn't just about gaining new knowledge, it was about taking a step of faith and walking into the victory that had already been won. The battlefield is still there, but now I am armed and ready, and I'm no longer a victim of my own thoughts. I am a warrior in a spiritual war, and by faith I am winning.